Hello guys, Turtleags here, bringing you another AFK journey video. Today I am going to do an updated guide on Skyclops that will be way more detailed than my first iteration about a month ago when I first filmed this guide. Basically, how this video will go is I will showcase, well, first I will talk about Skyclops, how his kit works, how you should design your team to best combat his mechanics. Second, I'm going to showcase the optimal team that I personally run to maintain a top 10 score against the Skyclops. Then I will go ahead and showcase several different meta teams that are optimal against Skyclops. One that is more whale or dolphin friendly and one that is more free to play low spender friendly, okay? So first let's talk about Skyclops. Skyclops is one of the 4 Dream Realm bosses. In my opinion, might be one of the toughest because this is a boss that you need to bring 2 different kinds of units. You need to bring an AoE damage dealer that is capable of quickly taking down the adds, and then also you need to have a dedicated single target DPS that is able to push that high score. First, let's talk about Skyclops. So Skyclops, if I was to go over his mechanics here. All right, so let's go over his ultimate first. So this is actually the ultimate that gives a lot of people trouble. I remember back when I first started the game, I was relying heavily on Coco to survive the laser beam. It's quite powerful. Basically, this laser beam, he charges briefly before shooting it, sweeps through a 10-tile arc. It'll just basically laser the entire map from left to right, dealing 260% damage to all enemies touched by the laser. It's quite powerful. Now I can handle it reasonably well, but I remember when the game first started, this hit like a freaking truck. And then the Wings of Light. So this was what I was talking about. He will basically place 4 adds over the course of the match. It'll either be 4 Wings of Light or I think 4 Wings of Darkness. Yep. And what do these guys do? So summons 4 Wings of Light, cannot be targeted, and gains damage immunity while Wings of Light is present. So this is important because when he summons the adds, generally speaking, your party members will target these adds because until these adds go down, any damage dealt to Skyclops will be nullified. You won't do any damage to the boss. And for this reason, when pushing the high score, you want to bring one unit that is capable of heavy multi-target damage, that is able to take care of these Wings of Light. That way you can continue attacking Skyclops. While Wings of Light is present and its physical damage received is reduced by 40%. So this is actually another thing to keep in mind too, is that these adds will be, physical immune or magic immune. I believe the Wings of Darkness is magic immune. Yes. And this may or may not affect your team composition. I believe the team that I'm using against this boss is just full physical. So, it might have a slower time, taking out these Wings of Light because of the 40% physical damage reduction. But at the end of the day, I've noticed that with the exception of Odie, or maybe with the exception of Odie, there's, I would say, more physical damage dealers that are good against Dream Realm bosses in general versus magic damage dealers. So I wouldn't pay this clause too much mind, but of course I will give you many different team compositions we'll play test them. Skyclops casts Doom Shield 10 seconds after Wings of Light are defeated. Skyclops will alternate between Enlightenment Shield and Doom Shield. So what is this Doomed Shield? Does it even explain that? Okay, well, let's keep reading. So, Wings of Darkness, same idea, except it's magic defense that, 40% damage reduction from that side. Casts Enlightenment Shield, alternate between Enlightenment Shield and Doom Shield. Okay, what is all this? So, deals equal amounts of physical and magic damage. When Wings of Light are present on the field, Skyclops' physical damage increased by 15%. When Wings of Darkness are present on the field, magic damage increased by 15%. Interesting. To be honest, this doesn't really matter that much. It's a lot of words, and it doesn't even explain the entirety of its mechanics, but there's really 2 main things you just need to worry about, really. One is that you need to bring dedicated single target attackers to take down the boss. You need multi-target attackers, just one really, to take care of the ads quickly, and then just make sure that if you are dying from the laser beam, bring someone who is able to improve your survivability. Examples will be Coco's ultimate, which provides damage reduction, perhaps Haywin for the damage reduction, or Corin for the shields, or maybe even Lucius for the shields. I'm kind of like reaching out for those people who, maybe you don't have all the characters. Those are some ideas. Okay, so now that we've gone over Skyclops mechanics, let's go ahead and show you first the team that I personally use to battle the boss. This is my favorite team, but we will go over several different teams. So basically the way this team works is you have Smokey here. The beauty of Smokey is that he is able, if I was to pull this up here, the main reason you bring Smokey is twofold. One is that at Mythic Plus, he has this enhanced aroma that is able to make the enemies in skill range lose 12% of their max HP per second. So for Smokey to be a DPS as well as a healer who boosts the attack power of your party, you do want to have him Mythic Plus. And in addition to dealing a lot of damage to Skyclops, he also increases the attack of all allies within the aroma by 16%. Okay, so that's the reason you bring Smokey. Now, the reason you bring Rainier is that at Mythic Plus, he is able to. He has this mechanic called dynamic balance. You see how below my Merrily here, she has a purple aura, and the Dream Realm boss, Skyclops, has a red aura. Well, basically, I have positioned Rainier such that he selects my Merrily, my main DPS, and selects the Dream Realm boss, which is the boss, my main enemy, right? So the way this dynamic balance works is that at Mythic Plus, he increases the damage taken by the Dream Realm boss by 25% until the battle ends. And so this is why a lot of people say that Rainier at Mythic Plus is pretty much necessary to push a high score. I am of the belief, after talking with many different people, whales, dolphins, low spenders, free-to-plays, that my general feeling is that if you don't have let's say you have a Corrin and Merrily Mythic Plus, those people tend to stay in top 50. And then if you have a Rainier Mythic Plus, then generally you will be top 20, maybe even top 10. So that kind of gives you a flavor of what units you should build if you are serious about scoring high on the Dream Realm. For those of you who haven't already, do check out my Temporal Essence guide, because I emphasize the importance of Dream Realm in order to stay in the top of your server. So in addition to increasing the damage taken by the enemy by 25%, he also increases the damage dealt by your targeted ally by up to 12%. So my Merrily's getting a 12% attack boost, and the enemy target has their attack reduced by 12%. So this actually makes Rainier extra valuable against the Skyclops, who is probably one of the hardest hitting Dream Realm bosses that we have in this game right now. Being able to reduce the enemy's damage to survive the laser beam better while improving your own damage is very valuable. So Rainier, very, very good, especially in this Dream Realm. Now, why Merrily? So Merrily is very good because she has one of the highest attack speed in the game. She also buffs her own attack, as you can see here. Whenever your allies cast their ultimate, her attack increases by 5%, and that stacks up to 6 times. So she eventually gets 30% attack percent increase, which is quite a lot, and her normal attacks deal true damage after reaching max stacks. So pretty close into the match, because Merrily's attack speed is so high, she will gain a bunch of buffs, which true damage, by the way, is what allows you to bypass the enemy defenses, and given how chunky the Skyclops is, you're going to deal massive damage. And then gains an extra stack of battlefield learning when hyperfocus takes effect for every 10 seconds. So from what I gather, let me see here. I mean, I could go on and on about the mechanics, but all you really need to know about Merrily is she hits pretty hard. For the most part. Okay, and then Corrin, so the reason why Corrin is so good is because when you have him Mythic Plus, he is able to deal additional true damage equal to 2% of the target's max HP for 8 seconds with follow-up attacks. So this is very important because, you know, whenever you're dealing with a chunky enemy such as Skyclops, or say like a Primal Lord, being able to have an attack that scales off of the enemy's max HP is going to turn Corrin into a huge DPS. In the same way that Smokey is actually DPS because he scales off of the max attack, the max HP of the enemy. Okay, and then not only that, but Corrin also applies shields to all your units. As you can see here, Corrin jumps next to the weakest ally, granting both of them a shield that blocks 300% damage for 5 seconds. Yeah. And so this is, and then he then jumps to the closest enemy, which will only be the Dream Boss, dealing true damage. So Corrin is very good. I think Corrin is actually kind of the glue that brings this team together, because if you were not running Corrin, you would have to run Coco for the damage mitigation. But with Corrin, you know, his shields are actually pretty chunky. You'll see over the course of this match that the shield provides a lot of damage mitigation. And then finally, I have Scarlita. So Scarlita, this is kind of a team that is more for Dolphins and Whales, because I think even Dolphins wouldn't spend on Stargaze packs or Stellar Crystal packs. And so don't worry guys, I will showcase teams that don't use Scarlita, but from my experience, Scarlita is kind of the 5th person in this team that kind of, this is the unit that actually, sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Scarlita is the unit that will actually take down the ads, and you will see her when she slams down, she decimates the 4 ads during the first 6 seconds of the match. So basically, you know, so Scarlita is great because she deals true damage if there's at least 4 surviving non-summoned allies other than herself on the battlefield. If you have her EX5 or EX10, that reduces to just 3 surviving allies. So, you know, Scarlita is another damage dealer who also does true damage. You'll kind of notice a pattern here. Corrin, Marilee, Scarlita, they all deal true damage. This is very valuable against Primal Lords and Dream Realm bosses. And yeah, so when she smashes into the ground, deals a 3-tile rock wave, dealing 200% damage to all enemies. So when she's in the air and she slams down, she'll decimate the ads, and then you know, once more ads are created, she is able. Oh, and also, by the way, she helps with survivability, because during the first 6 seconds when she's in the air, she's stunning the enemy, which won't happen against the Dream Realm boss, but she applies shields to your unit. So this helps with survivability. Essentially, what this team is trying to do is maximize your damage while at the same time keeping your units alive. But the ability to keep your units alive is not as huge as, say, if you had a Coco or maybe brought a second healer. However, this is what allows you to push a high score. So anyways, Scarlita does have multi-target damage, if I can find it. Okay, anyway, she's a multi-target attacker. Just take my word for it. So let's. Oh, and then you run the Star Shard spell. Sorry, I clicked too fast, but this is the Star Shard spell here. The reason you run this spell is because it increases your haste, allowing you to do more damage. You know, increases your HP to help your survivability. Oh, notice how, yeah. So you saw Scarlita slam down just now and decimate that first row of enemies. The shields are provided by my Corrin. We're actually fairly healthy here. The Star Shard spell, that wave, is doing damage. Oh, so here now we have, I should slow this down, the blue aura, which is Smokey's aura, which is dealing, notice how the HP bar is like going down really quickly, right? That is Smokey removing, you know, I forget, 1 to 2% of the target's max HP every second for 10 seconds. So that's kind of a way to accelerate the damage that the enemy. Oh, so Scarlita, you saw her hammer, right? She decimated the 3 ads that were in front of her. Maybe even cleaved the one behind her. I'm actually not sure, but my other units may have handled that. So we're actually doing pretty well. Smokey is keeping our units quite okay, and then Corrin. So Corrin applies shields to himself as well as, you know, the weakest ally, and you know. Yeah, so you see how important it is, like, when you have to take down the ads, otherwise the Skyclops will take no damage. And notice how the laser beam is doing more and more damage, but Corrin with his shield, if Corrin didn't apply the shield on Smokey, Smokey could have died, actually, from that. Yeah, see, so Corrin is keeping everyone alive, Oh, and look at all those buffs Merrily has. So, 56.6 mil, pretty decent damage there. All right, so this is kind of you see how much damage Merrily and Corrin did. And, Corrin is really the GOAT because he's doing this much damage and keeping your team alive. So it's very valuable. And Smokey did as much damage as Scarlita, which is quite impressive. And, yeah, so that is what I believe to be the best team against Skyclops. Now, I do want to direct your attention to a very useful visual. So this is a graph or a visual that was put together by Analytica, the #1 guild on server 1. And Analytica is a great resource that puts together all sorts of different cheat sheets, if you will, that allow you to score high on the Dream Realm. And I have playtested all these teams, or most of them, and I would say that they are pretty accurate. So Team A is actually the first team that I went over, right? Let's go ahead and try the, the second team. And you'll kind of see the difference. So just so you guys remember, I did 56.6 mil damage. All right, so now let's go ahead and do Cassidy. So here, let me just... So if you don't have Scarlita, which most of you won't, you'll probably run Team 2, which Cassidy, what makes her so great is that she has the ability to bless a DPS. Usually you want to bless a damage dealer such as, sorry, let me move this up a little bit, Merrily, who has high attack speed. Normally you would bless either Merrily, Corrin, or Odie. Okay, so you're blessing Merrily in this case because she has high attack speed. And basically the idea is, if I was to go over Cassidy here, she has a mechanic where at the start of the match, let me see. Yeah, at the start of the match, she selects a nearby ally, so positioning does matter here, granting them the blessing of Tidal Strength. She deals extra 60% magic damage to the enemy once when the blessed ally hits them with normal attacks. Yes, and then the blessing vanishes after the above effect is triggered 9 times. So after Merrily does 9 normal attacks, the blessing will disappear. But 9 seconds after that, the blessing will reappear, and this time cannot be dispelled. So this I don't know why they did it this way, but essentially what happens is that, every time Merrily does a normal attack, Cassidy will deal an extra 60% magic damage, which kind of turns Cassidy into a damage dealer, and then there will be a 9-second cooldown time, and then for the duration of the match, whatever the 45 seconds that's remaining, your Merrily is going to, every time she does a normal attack, Cassidy will do 60% damage. And you'll probably notice on this visual here that Cassidy has this red asterisk. Do you see that? This blue asterisk? Now, the footnotes I don't have on this visual because I kind of cropped it, but what that asterisk essentially says is that they highly recommend that you have a Cassidy EX weapon level 10. Now, why is that? The reason is, at EX weapon level 10, when the enemy takes damage from Tidal Strength 6 times, they will be hit by Undercurrent once immediately. Undercurrent is this ability right here, where she creates a water column beneath the enemy, knocking them in the air, dealing 240% damage and stunning them for a second and a half. Now, the stun won't affect the boss. The knocking into the air won't affect the boss. However, the 240% damage is, what did we say? 240 divided by 60. You're dealing like 3 times extra damage. So it's like, every time Merrily does a normal attack, they're taking 60% magic damage, but that water column is dealing 240% damage, so 3 times as much damage. So it's like every 6 normal attacks, in addition to the 60% magic damage, extra magic damage that Cassidy's doing, she also hits with an Undercurrent, dealing another 240% magic damage. So it adds up to a lot of damage. Yeah. And so that's the main reason you run Cassidy. But what's so cool is that when Cassidy casts her ultimate, Running Tide, it grants all allied heroes on the path a temporary buff, empowering their next 6 normal attacks with the effect of Tidal Strength. So that Tidal Strength, that blessing that you gave for your Merrily, is actually applied to your entire party, generally speaking, every time Cassidy casts her ultimate. So basically, it's a lot of damage. And Cassidy, by the way, is best in slot for 3 of the 4 Dream Realm bosses, and Merrily and Corrin are best, and Rainier at Mythic Plus are best in slot for all 4 Dream Realm bosses. So, if you were to ask me, hey Turtle, what unit should I work on in order to have the best Dream Realm score? without a doubt, you start with Merrily. You're working towards Mythic Plus Rainier. Once you have Merrily Mythic Plus, you get Corrin to Mythic Plus. That way they're both doing true damage, and then get your Merrily to Supreme Plus, then your Corrin to Supreme Plus, and then get your Cassidy to Supreme Plus. Yeah, and all of them. Any temporal essences you get, especially if you're free to play or low spender, you should first spend on these 3 units, and also to some extent Rainier, because Rainier at Mythic Plus is kind of a wet noodle. You have to get his EX weapon to at least level 5, that way he doesn't keep dying, and this is assuming you stop at Mythic Plus, which a lot of you should do. Get Rainier Mythic Plus and then start getting Scarlita, because Scarlita is going to be needed in Trial of the Abyss, is going to be needed in Arena, and as you saw just now, is best in slot against the Skyclops. Alright, anyways, let's keep going here. So then we have Smokey. So Smokey, the reason why you bring him kind of to the front is because you want to make sure the blue aura catches the boss, and you want to make sure his healing aura hit, blankets everyone, right? For the attack buff as well as the healing. And then you're going to have Rainier here. Now what's interesting is that we are actually going to have Rainier Dynamic Balance Corrin. And, I have tried various iterations. I try to come up with my own team creation, but I haven't been able to beat this setup. Yeah, for some reason, I don't know why, but Cassidy, generally you bless Merrily, and then you have Rainier Dynamic Balance Corrin, which actually makes a lot of sense, because Corrin does almost as much damage as Merrily, but Merrily is the best target for Cassidy's Blessing. And then you're still on the Star Shard spell here. Star Shard, I forgot to mention, so reduces the attacks, deals damage to the enemies, reduces their attack speed, so you're reducing the attack speed of the boss. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's how it works. And then after allies, and then it deals true damage. It doesn't say in this visual, but if you were to go to the artifact section on the when you check out your team, the Star Shard does do true damage. Alright, so let's see how this one performs. So remember what I said before, we did 56.6 mil damage with the Scarlita variant. So now let's see how much damage the Cassidy variant does. And then the third iteration that we'll go through is going to, instead of Cassidy, run Odie instead. Okay, so Scarlita should... Oh yeah, we don't have Scarlita. So actually that dealt a good amount of damage too. I'd say it only took like an extra split second to take down the ads. So we don't necessarily have a multi-target attacker in this team composition. However, with the undercurrent damage that with the blessing that Cassidy provides to all your units, you do take down the ads fairly quickly. Sorry, I just realized this visual is blocking. Oh yeah, that tide. So everyone gets the tidal blessing, tidal strength blessing right now. That should allow you to take down the ads fairly quickly, as you saw just now. Oh, and by the way, Cassidy is a magic damage dealer, if I'm not mistaken, so that kind of helps a little bit with having both the physical and magic damage side. So we did 54.7 mil, so pretty respectable as well. Not as much as the Scarlita variant, but that's why we're doing all this. That way you guys see what you're missing out on if you are substituting units. Okay, so the third variant we're going to go over is the Odie variant. The only thing you really change is a little bit of positioning. And I can make this video an hour long by going over every single variant, but I don't think you guys will stick around for an hour-long video. So for this reason, we're just going to go with the optimal teams. If you feel like you can come up with an even better team, prove it, and comment in the comment section below. All right, so as you can see, all we did here was just we added a third damage dealer. Nothing to talk about. I mean, I guess besides, you all know that Odie's the GOAT, and a lot of us actually built Odie in the early days of global release before we realized that Merrily and Corrin were good. That's kind of the story of my life through the AFK journey. But this is why I'm refilming the Skyclops video, because I believe during my first iteration of the Skyclops video, I'm not even sure if I brought Merrily and Corrin. Yeah, so we're dealing good damage here. So we did 56 mil, 56.6 mil with Scarlita, 54.7 mil with Cassidy. Yeah, you see, and the cool thing about Star Shard spell is that it actually hits all the ads as well, which kind of softens them up, which is quite nice. And as you can see, if it wasn't for Corrin, we'd probably need to bring someone else. 54.5, okay, so almost the same as Cassidy. So that's good news for those of you who didn't build your Cassidy, but most certainly built your Coco. I'm sorry, I forgot to show the damage outcome for the previous, but this is... You know, I should probably replay that so you see how much damage Cassidy does. Oh, actually, the next team that we're going to showcase will run Cassidy. So now, assuming you don't have a Rainier, let me show you two more teams that run a different variant without Rainier. So most of you free-to-plays and low spenders will not have a Rainier Mythic Plus. Okay, so we got Corrin, we got Odie, we got Smokey, we got Rainier, we got... Oh, okay, sorry, I was looking at the wrong chart. Got Cassidy, got Corrin, Smokey, Merely, and Odie. Okay, so in this particular situation, instead of running a Rainier, you're going to run a Cassidy. And what this team essentially does is it retains all your damage dealers, and Cassidy as a support is kind of providing supplemental damage that Rainier wouldn't otherwise provide. Now the thing about this team is that you're probably going to take more damage because you don't have Rainier anymore to decrease the Dream Realm boss's damage attack by 12%. So let's see how the survivability of this team goes. And this time I will actually show the final, like how much damage everyone did. I apologize for not showing it for the second team, but I don't know if I want to spend another minute and a half just to show you guys that outcome. This should give you a general idea of how much Cassidy does in relation to the other units. Sorry, I just woke up in the morning and my allergies kicking in. You know, I'm pleasantly surprised that our damage output actually won't be that much different. Maybe 2 mil less. And I should mention by the way, guys, whenever you're fighting against a Dream Realm boss, you should always use the maximum 10 attempts, because sometimes you'll get a lucky crit. Which is why sometimes when you redo the battle multiple times, you'll have a higher score on one of those random attempts. Okay, so 53 mil, that's not that much difference. So we went from, what, 56 mil to 55 mil to 54 mil, and now we're 53 mil. So it's actually not that huge of a difference, but it could be the difference between a couple places. And remember, when you drop out a top 10 of the Dream Realm, you go from getting 4 temporal essences a day to 3. Or 3 to 2, you know, when you drop from top 20 to top 50. And as you can see here, Cassidy actually almost did as much damage as Corrin and Merely. As a matter of fact, she did about the same amount of damage as Odie. So this is the power of Cassidy. Now, for the final team that I want to showcase here, so instead of Cassidy, they ran Kruger. So they, you know, this kind of shows like Cassidy in a way is a support like Rainier and Kruger. So, and by the way, for those of you guys who are curious, I have all my characters, all my support characters, Cassidy, Kruger, and Rainier EX weapon level 10. So this is, like, my characters are pretty evenly built. And all 3 of my DPSs, they are EX weapon level 15. Corrin, Merely, and Odie. So hopefully this gives you an accurate representation while minimizing the variability based on different levels. Okay, so let me just... It's just easier if I take everyone out. So we got Corrin here, and then we got Odie here, and then we got Smokey here. And by the way, for those of you guys who are saying, well, why aren't you creating your own team? I have created my own team, but this is the optimal. Like, I've tested so many different teams. Okay, so uh, this is kind of interesting because normally you would bring Kruger off to the side. That way he gets, you know, this buff. So when the battle starts, Kruger starts with a shield that blocks damage if no allies for 15 seconds. Shield also grants him control immunity. For whatever reason, they had him here. I don't think it really makes that huge of a difference besides increasing the survivability of Kruger. So for all purposes, I mean, this does bring him a tile forward. So why don't we just go with this? Okay. So this is interesting because in this visual they move Smokey back, which makes it so his... Okay, now the aura catches everyone. Okay, I was wondering about that. But most of the damage is actually going to be from Kruger. I mean, most of the damage will not be from Kruger. Kruger is there for the 40% physical defense shred. A lot of you guys know this already, but that's the reason you run Kruger. So that claw mark above the enemy, that is the 40% physical defense shred. It will stay there until the match is over. And mind you, Odie is a magic damage dealer, so the only people who will benefit from the magic defense shred will be Merrily and Corrin, not Odie. This is kind of part of the reason why Rainier generally is the better pick over Kruger. Actually, not generally, it's always the better pick against versus Kruger, excuse me, if you have Mythic Plus of Rainier. Okay, so 51, 51.8, and what did we have before? 52 mil? It's about the same. The thing is that it's entirely possible that the Cassidy team may have had a crit roll, a lucky crit, or sometime during the match. There's always some variability. This is why you run multiple times, but as you can see here, Merrily and Corrin did the most damage. Odie also did decent damage, but didn't get the buff of Kruger, right? Otherwise, he'd probably have done as much damage, if not more, than Corrin.